a world within our world. They've created a world unlike any other world.
Dungeons and Dragons. And a game like D&D fuels their imagination and makes them feel special.
The ogre is amused by your joke and allows you to pass.
Dad, I'm just curious. What is it about Dungeons and Dragons that suddenly leapt out at you at age 60?
Dungeons, it'd be the dungeons.
Just what I love about role-playing games is being told exactly what to do.
Me too. You should introduce yourselves.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to Guelph Community Radio. This is 93.3 CFRU, and you are listening to the best show on the station. I'm taking it. Too bad. This is the Spellbook. Like I said, my name is Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone, as today we travel to the layers of the biggest, the baddest, the most deadly villains of all time, from the lovely Feywild, that is the forest city of London, Ontario.
I am Damien, also known as Magical Hack.
Well, guys, this is the Spellbook. The Spellbook is the show right here on CFRU that is dedicated to the tabletop role-playing game hobby. Whether you are a Shadowrunner, a Dungeoneer, a cult investigator, or perhaps a small navigator on a spice freighter out there in a galaxy far, far away, or perhaps a Starfleet vessel, this is the show for you. So, last week on the show, we talked about backstories, and we created our own original character for Shadowrun, Tommy Fox, the mechanic, who also happens to be a ghoul mage. So, checking all the cool boxes in the world of the Sixth World. But in this edition of the show, well, we're going to talk about making better bad guys. And, you know, we have your Darth Vaders, your Vecna from Stranger Things, arguably kind of a weak villain at times. Megatron, Cobra Commander, Skeletor. These are cartoon characters that I know. But maybe I'm the bad guy from No Country for Old Men. And was he really that bad a guy, friendo? You tell me. So, Damien, this is a show that I trust your opinion more so than mine, because I'm going to be drawing on a lot of pop culture references. And one of the ones I'm going to pull today for an example that I think is a lot deeper than what I think, but I want you to take lead on this one. So, how do we design a better bad guy?
So, designing, honestly, in my opinion, designing a better bad guy starts with really the lead. And what I mean by that is you want your bad guy to be there. Not necessarily physically, but again, this is going to kind of depend on like the scale that we're working. So let's say this is like a regional type threat.
Okay.
For your TTRPG campaign. So we're going to say something the size of like a dragon.
Okay.
I think for like D&D terms, a dragon would be about a regional threat, like up to about the like adult or ancient level. It's not really threatening the whole planet, but it's threatening a pretty wide area.
Yeah.
You want to see their influence. It might not be drastic at first, or it might be, depending on if you want something a lot grittier. But you want them to be there. Rumors. Using say Dragonland as a for instance.
Okay.
In the first book of I think the first one was Autumn Twilight.
Mm-hmm.
You see the goblins and the troops from the Dark Queen, as it were, in the first book. You see them right away.
Mm-hmm.
When all of the characters in that series are ostensibly level 1. because I'm pretty sure that whole book series was just one big campaign that Hickman and Weiss decided to turn into a book.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like, so you want that presence early, and you want to kind of keep it going, but you also want to sprinkle in ways for your players to find out what the motivation is. Like, why is your bad guy doing what they're um I'm gonna draw from, from anime here. One of the anime that I watch or I have rewatched a few times is The Wise Man's Grandchild. It's an isekai anime. You can find it on Crunchyroll. Pretty interesting. The main antagonist in the show, they weren't always a bad guy. Like when it gets to like their backstory episode, they originally were, the good noble archetype. Like they helped the people of the land and stuff like that. However, due to certain machinations and humans being humans, they ended up being betrayed, and that drove them to being a villain. So, like, if you as the GM can kind of find ways to sprinkle that sort of backstory and relating back to last week's episode, sprinkle that big that bad guy's backstory into the campaign,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's gonna add depth to that bad guy.
Yeah, because one of the things you can do when spreading influence, it could be troops, it could be
Mhm.
rumors. Maybe someday your adventurers are walking across a field and it's a bright sunny day and they're having a moment and suddenly a shadow passes over them. And they're going to think, "Ah, crap, roll initiative." Okay? Nothing happens. "What do you mean?" "Something flew over you and it was big."
Yeah.
And you can fake them out doing that real easy too. I mean, that's a trick you can only pull a couple times in a game, but don't be afraid, or, maybe leave their mark. For example, we'll use the dragon example here. Maybe your players are, again, they're walking from one destination to the next. They come across a ruined encampment. They find shattered armor. They find stuff that has been impossibly melted either through heat or acid, or, been completely like, maybe, okay, here's a cool idea. They come across a desert encampment. Place is tore up real bad, no survivors. All the surrounding sand has been turned to glass.
Mm.
What happened here? It's probably a blue dragon because it's using lightning, but it
Yeah.
also could be something that can fuse sand into glass. That could be a really powerful red dragon. Like, you
Yep.
don't know. And that gives your players the idea of escalating threat. Sort of like if we'd been 15 or 20 minutes early,
Yeah.
this could have ended real bad.
Yeah.
Now,
And as well
yeah.
too, make that something they find on the way to their destination.
Yeah, because like your bad guy doesn't need to make an appearance in everything. Like literally, if Darth Vader was in every scene in Star Wars, that'd be pretty friggin' boring. I mean, if we're
Yeah.
gonna be real, like even when you look at Star Wars, the original, like episode 4, Darth Vader only shows up on Princess Leia's ship when he kidnaps her,
Yeah.
shows up on the Death Star, yells at people, and he doesn't become a threat until he kills Obi-Wan, and then he's in the Death Star trench in his like TIE fighter. So he's not present a lot, but people are afraid of him because he is literally the goon of the Emperor. He's known as like, the Emperor's right-hand man, and he's always a constant present threat. And how that threat is projected: stormtroopers, TIE fighters, and eventually the Death Star.
Yeah.
But what are people more afraid of, the Death Star or Vader? I think Vader, honestly, because the Death Star is just, it's a big beach ball in space that can blow up a planet. But Darth Vader, he can make you suffer because you will talk one way or another. You're not getting out of Imperial interrogation without telling him what he wants to know. And that's the thing. You have to make your threat present, but not there every single episode. Now, the idea I was going to go with, and kind of annoyed that you said anime because that's what I was going to do, and I thought it was going to be so smart and so clever. No. But I've started rewatching Dragon Ball Z, and you're thinking, Mike, really? Dragon Ball? And I had this idea when you pitched the show to me like 2 weeks ago. The Android Saga. Some people consider that to be one of the weaker sagas in Dragon Ball. Long story short, Vegeta's son Trunks comes back through time and says, hey, in 3 years, these really bad dudes are going to show up on this day at this time. If you don't kill these androids, they're going to wipe you all out, and we can't get the Dragon Balls back. You need to be ready. Oh, by the way, you're going to get a heart virus. Here's your medicine. See you later. And Trunks disappears. And I got to thinking, I think the Android arc is not terrible for introducing an escalating bad guy. Here's what I mean. So Trunks is the delivery vehicle for this message. And Trunks comes back and tells, like I said, the fighters of this horrible fate that, okay, guys, on May 12th, in 3 years, at 10:40 in the morning, the androids are coming. You need to be ready. So with your players, like, okay, we have 3 years. What are we waiting for? Let's go find Dr. Jerome. Let's go kick his butt like right now. No. You can't do that because you don't know where he is. But you know the threat's there. So what do? And then when the androids do show up, hey, wait a second. You don't look like a brother and sister. Why do you look like this? So now the threat that they were anticipating and been ready for is suddenly different. So your big bad guy, you are still functionally telling them this story's still true, but now the details have changed. Like, for example, you and I are playing in a game right now, and I promise I'm not doing this, even though I really wish I did now. I've said to you and the rest of the players, you've arrived back in time. The place is right, but the details are wrong. And it's sort of laying down possible dread because again, going back to the Android example, eventually androids 19 and 20 are defeated, and then the real threat shows up, androids 17 and 18. And even then, they're not the biggest threat out there. That's Cell. So it's an escalating threat. And I love the idea of layering multiple threats. Like, again, functionally, it's still an android that's going to hurt the future and make things suck for property values. But now you've introduced multiple bad guys. So now there's lieutenants, there's sub bad guys. Like, here's your level 1 bad dude, here's your level 2 bad dude, and here's the ultimate bad dude in super perfect Cell who can blow up the planet. But speaking of blowing up the planet, which I promise I'm not going to do, I'm honor bound by the Dragon Balls to not do this. We have to take a break. So we will be back right here on the Spellbook, right here on Guelph's own community radio. We have our own set of Dragon Balls. Prove me wrong. This is 93.3. My name is Mike the Birdman. That is Damien Magical Hack Morphin. And when we come back, more bad guys right here on the Spellbook.
My name is Emily. I'm hanging out in the studio with Isaac from College Heights, and you're listening to CFRU 93.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Spellbook, right here on 93.3 CFRU, Guelph Community Radio, as we talk about building better bad guys. Before we went to the break, we were talking about the Android Saga from Dragon Ball. And like having escalating enemies. And that was actually something that I also wanted to touch on is, like,
Mhm.
you want to have like, you don't want to reveal what the big bad is or who the big bad is
Mhm.
from the get-go. Honestly, if depending on how long your campaign is, obviously, I
Yeah.
don't even think personally you wanna reveal that within the first arc of the campaign.
Yeah, because campaign length does determine what your big bad is. Like, for example, to go back to Star Wars, back when Star Wars was just episode 4, when it was just Star Wars, we knew they'd mentioned the Emperor, but you never saw him. We just knew Vader was the bad guy, and that's all we kind of knew. But now we've stretched that saga impossibly long, and now Palpatine's still the bad guy, but okay, sure, he's not as interesting as Darth Maul. I'm sorry, Darth Sidious sucks.
Yeah, yeah. They definitely should have come up with a new bad guy for the 7, 8, and 9. Or
Yeah, somehow Palpatine returned. Let me tell you, um, words I can't say on the radio were said in the theater, and I looked at one of the theater employees. Hey, sir, how did you enjoy your movie? Blank off. I was so upset. I'm a terrible movie patron. Don't worry. I've patronized that theater many times. I've been a lot more grateful. But yeah, like if you introduce your bad guy too soon, I mean, even with my escalating idea of the threat of the androids, it wasn't 17 and 18 that showed up. No, Trunks had to come back and deliver the warning. And I never showed them what it was. I just said what it was. So if your players, for example, are playing in a short game, yeah, you can give them a taste, but don't hand them everything. You got to give them the Costco free sample, so to speak.
yeah. And, like, that's the thing, like, you want, um, well, like I said, like, you don't want to introduce the big bad, you do want to give hints and rumors about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't relate it to what your players are doing at all. Like, "Oh, hey, the dragon, Schmaugenraug," if you get that reference, awesome, is terrorizing, this area of the kingdom, you know, and, maybe you're hearing rumors about that as you're going to, you know, go save a village from a band of goblins and things like that. But then as, the art continues, maybe you start running into a lot more kobolds
Yeah. And in
in the area.
fact, you actually made me think of another pop culture reference in a sense, Ninja Turtles,
Yeah.
because there were always rumors of who is the Foot Clan, and you'd see them. Actually, really good example in the first Ninja Turtles movie from 1990. April is delivering a report on TV, and she says over the news broadcast, like, rumors of a mysterious, ancient, mystical cult known as the Foot Clan have invaded New York, but people do not want to speak for fear of old superstition. And then even the chief of police says, April, these were stories from like 50, 60 years ago that might resemble this. You can't go putting that on TV. You're going to scare people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you do. Because, like, with this kind of dragon, for example, and their goons, maybe they go to the town guard, like, oh man, look at all these goblins and kobolds here. What's going on? They're just what do you want from me? They're just trying to they're not part of anything organized. And then maybe a hobgoblin shows up with them, like, why is someone militarized working with these? Nah, maybe it's just a mercenary. You could make the people around the big bads who are supposed to be the quote unquote authorities really bloody stupid or dismissive, but your group knows better.
One of the now that those are definitely great ideas. One of the things that I like um as a GM is, yes, the big bad is a dragon. But who's to say they don't have humans or elves or other humanoid races working underneath?
Oh yeah. Like
Who's to say those, humanoid henchmen aren't in contact with the party?
yeah, and that's a wonderful I idea too because maybe you're getting actually this is something I love doing, and now that I've said you because you're playing in one of my games, I have to hope you suddenly forget this. um Maybe you're working for the bad guy. Mike, what do you mean? Okay. Hi, adventurers. I need you to go down to this dungeon and clear it out. Why? Because I'm going to give you gold. Okay, sir. Um, it's an adventure game. You're probably not going to say no to me throwing gold in your face or something, right? What if you just cleared out the dragon's new stronghold because
Yeah.
he couldn't be bothered to go do it, and suddenly, wait a second, I thought we were the good guys. No, you just helped, you know, Darth Vader take over Dantooine. Good job, but the money was good.
Yeah.
And that ties into last week's episode about backstories.
Yeah.
Don't just do it because the money's good. Question where that money's coming from. Do a
Uh,
credit check. It's not that hard.
exactly. And like even bringing that up, I'm actually glad that you had brought that up because the through the various means of contact, maybe the dragon is getting you to get rid of their rival. Maybe
Yeah.
it is a blue dragon, and the campaign is set in a more like desert, badlands, scrublands type area, and there are a couple of blue dragons on this continent, and you seem to be directed to a lot of various blue dragons.
Yeah.
Weird.
And yeah, and the cool thing about that is because even if your guys know, oh yeah, it's a blue dragon, they breathe lightning. Part of the social hierarchy of blue dragons is they think they're better than everybody else. They are top of the proverbial dragon food chain because they're arrogant. They may have empires
Mhm.
that span centuries, and now you're a problem. Okay, cool. You've now taken out my foes. Well, now you're not so useful anymore. And another adventuring party comes looking for you because, as far as that adventuring party knows, you've been working for the jerk and
Yeah.
you're the bad guys. What are you going to do then? Like, we're not the bad guys. We've been helping people. No, you haven't. It's perspective. And that's something that your villains can do too. They can turn entire villages, groups, NPCs against you. And one of the wonderful things I love doing, because it's such a good bad guy, but it works as a bad guy as a henchman, shapeshifters, mimics, stuff like that. People who appear to be trusted NPCs, but really aren't. Doppelgangers. And I know it's kind of an old D&D trick, like what is the password if you suspect someone's been taken by a doppelganger. Honestly, Damien, I don't think a lot of modern D&D groups run into the doppelgangers as much as they used to, at least when you and I played D&D pretty heavy. I just don't hear about it anymore.
Well, I think a lot of like I think that comes from a couple of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, GMs are, on the whole, generally overthink things, and hate to use this term, but the Matt Mercer effect.
Yeah.
They are overthinking it and and essentially getting in their own heads about, well, how can I do this and make it perfect? How can I, I don't want to, try and run this and, have it backfire, or I don't want to gaslight my players, which unfortunately with running something, especially like a doppelganger or other sentient, sapient, I should say, changeling. I'm not including mimics in this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have to do that. You have to get, that is the whole thing, is you are being very dishonest with your players. And another thing that kind of, I think, makes it hard for newer GM to run these creatures is, how do you deal with it when the doppelganger kidnaps one of the people?
Yeah, like that actually happened in one of my games. I was playing with my friend Pete, and he's like, "Okay, Mike, your character's been captured. You're a doppelganger now." I'm like, "Okay, make a new character." Say, "No. I want you to play your character because one of the cool things about being a doppelganger is they have access to your memories. So, if you and the GM want to cooperate to create something really cool, you can cooperate on that. Now, don't be the murder guy who goes around and poisons them with arsenic in their sleep, because that's not fun. But you can have some real fun. And I think part of being a better bad guy is how and when the trap gets sprung. Because if you go to the doppelganger well, for example, too often, your players are going to see it coming. Oh, there's a helpful NPC. She's a succubus. She's a doppelganger. And it's like, it becomes Scooby-Doo. You rip off the mask. It's like, oh, I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you darn kids. Like, okay, that's funny once. And that's something you could maybe pull maybe twice during a long campaign. But it's not something you can go back to. Because, again, you don't want your bad guys to be, threats. They're like, oh, look, it's Pilaf from Dragon Ball. I'm on a kick right now, guys. I'm really sorry. But you also can't be introducing Majin Buu every 15 minutes either.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be different tiers. And by having the big bad exert influence, be present in the characters' lives, even in a small capacity, it has to be subtle. And like Damien, you hit it right on the head. You have to hit them with it at the right time. And that's so hard, because if campaign length is, okay, guys, we're playing for 6 weeks, presume that's 6 sessions. Does the bad guy show up in session 3? Do you let them kick their butt in like session 4 and then it's, Rocky to the revenge sort of thing? Or like, what do you do with something like that? Like, how do you time bad guys as we go out to break in the next couple of minutes here?
So for myself, just quickly here, I usually will have the big bad show up, or become apparent, within the second arc, and they usually wouldn't show up until about the third arc of what I'm doing. Just simply because that way you've kind of telegraphed them, and if you say actually physically bring them in and physically introduce to the PCs at the beginning of, say, the third arc, you can then have a first fight with them, have them run away, and then have the characters go after them. But I think we can expand more on that after.
Oh yeah, like 100%. Because again, if you don't have the guys built up properly, the victory feels hollow, or in the worst case scenario, the victory feels boring. Like, yeah, we're definitely going to draw upon this as we come back from break in just a moment here. But I want to remind you, you are listening to 93.3 CFRU. This is Guelph's Community Radio. And don't forget, guys, you can volunteer here. Just come on up to the station, see what you can do. You can go to CFRU.ca, talk about being a volunteer with our volunteer coordinator, Jenny. She's wonderful. You should check it out. But anyway, guys, we will be back right here on the Spellbook. I've been Mike. That's been Damien. And we'll be back with a bigger, badder guy right after this.
Hi, my name's Karen, and you're tuned into Guelph's volunteer-programmed campus and community radio station, CFRU 93.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Spellbook, right here on 93.3 CFRU, Guelph Community Radio. Mike and I are talking about bad guys. And before break, I was kind of mentioning a little bit about how I usually pace out my BBEG when I'm running more so a long form campaign. This doesn't really apply to one shots, but some of the later on suggestions actually do. Um, like I said, the first act, usually for me, that's more of like a prologue act and a getting the scene set. So you see the world as it mostly should be. There's bad stuff that happens. You kind of hear rumors about the goings on of the big bad, but you don't see their influence.
Yeah, when you say that, I kind of picture Game of Thrones season 1.
Yeah,
Where, yeah, kind of like the Seven Kingdoms, they're okay. We live in the North. Jon Snow, you know nothing, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, we don't know the Lannisters suck, the White Walkers. We see a flash of them, but we don't know what they are. But yeah, otherwise, it's business as normal until, King Joffrey shows up and he sucks.
yeah, exactly. And then yeah, like at that point, after the first arc is done, you get to the second arc where maybe at first you're not dealing directly with the big bad. You're not seeing kobolds at first, but it starts. You start realizing, oh, hey, the reason why there's so many villages that are being attacked, or so many traders need guards and things like that. Maybe that's because there's something bigger going on. And then that's when you get the like really deep plot hooks where, oh, hey, you're hearing rumors, or you're getting quests about like camps of kobolds, and you're seeing that there's more advanced versions of kobolds, like you're seeing kobold sorcerers and things of that nature that maybe you don't normally see.
I know one other approach that I do to move this into, say, a cyberpunk setting, for example, or any modern setting. Okay, so there's no kobolds or whatever, but let's just say, suddenly some of your resources start kind of drying up. Like maybe the
Yeah.
people you buy your weapons from, suddenly you're not getting the highest grades of stuff. Or I know in certain games like Cyberpunk and Shadowrun and other games along those lines, maybe drug overdoses start happening. And that's something you can very easily throw into a conversation when everybody walks into the tavern. But if you want to give your players like a newspaper, or a random NPC starts talking to them, it's like, oh man, did you hear about all those overdoses? Or did you hear there's some guy downtown dealing this new drug? Sounds like pretty bad news, but
Yeah.
don't worry about that. I got this perfect job for you. And again, it's laying down influence. Like I said, it's the Foot Clan, it's the monsters. I thought of one really bad example of setting
Okay.
up a bad guy. And I was thinking, oh man, maybe this is brilliant. And as we've been talking, I'm thinking, no, wait, maybe not. But I'm not sure. I want to hear your interpretation of this. So
Okay.
going back to Dragon Ball Z, the Saiyan saga, Raditz shows up, is Goku's brother, kicks the crap out of people. And then he's like, oh, by the way, in like a year, Vegeta and Nappa will be here. And I got to thinking, like, they kind of blew it early. Like, when Raditz says, oh, yeah, there's 2 warriors coming who are way more powerful than me, I'm thinking, well, okay, now you've kind of set the bar. And it's a little bit different from the androids because it's time travel. So that future's already happened.
Yeah.
You could stop that. But this is something you don't really understand. You've just introduced, okay, somebody with really powerful ki blasts is coming. Get ready, dude. And I'm thinking, yeah, like it kind of sucks. Like, because eventually Vegeta is portrayed to be this super guy. He kicks the crap out of Goku, but eventually, you know how that goes. But Nappa is supposed to be the big dude who kicks the crap out of most of the Z fighters until Goku beats him, and then Vegeta blows him up. And it's like, okay, that's kind of a bad arc for a villain. Like, Raditz, I think, is badass, and I wish he'd done more. Nappa was cool. Vegeta was the big thing, but I'm thinking, I don't like how they introduced the power scaling of that, because you knew the Saiyans were coming, but it was just kind of like their adventures didn't really lead up to it other than them training. So that's a really bad example of laying things in the world other than the ticking clock. And the ticking clock can be used at times, but a really bad example of this too. And this is going to draw hate. So, Damien, what's the email address before I say this next part?
Thespellbookshow at gmail.com.
Okay.
Please be advised that I will be reading all of the emails. So if you're going to be mean,
direct it to me. To the fat guy in the wheelchair. Baldur's Gate 3. Oh my God. Okay, here's why. You get infected with a mind flayer parasite. We all know that. That literally happens in the first 5 minutes. The game's been out for years now. But it's the ticking clock, right? In Baldur's Gate 3, you kind of turn into a mind flayer at one point in that game, but not really, because there's no consequences. You just have this thing in your head that gives you really cool powers. Maybe you get more cool powers if you choose to use it, but it's a ticking clock that doesn't do anything, because in the world of D&D, you get infected with a mind flayer parasite. Typically, you turn in like a week, sometimes like 3 or 4 days. Either way, it's not long enough. So that's a bad way to escalate a threat there. Now, maybe you could make the case that, okay, well, you haven't turned after 5 days. What's the big deal, right? Like, maybe you solved it, or maybe you're more powerful. Yeah, but now you're subverting expectations and you're asking your players an awful lot. But then again, maybe they're like, oh man, maybe we're special. Maybe the bad guy's screwing with us. But you've introduced what is typically a certainty, and now you've changed it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So conceptually, I actually don't mind the plot device that was used with Baldur's Gate 3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, and now with what I'm going to say here, I understand that it's probably because of video game play, like mechanics and features and balancing. So like, I understand this, but I don't like the way it was implemented. Like you, like there is absolutely no consequence for getting more illicit powers.
Yeah,
there's none. There's no downside.
Yeah, you get a slightly worse skin tone. You could take 30 long rests in a row. Doesn't matter, except you're out of sausage now.
Yeah, like there's a way that can be introduced, and I think in an actual TTRPG setting, so like actually at the tabletop or on Roll20, D&D Beyond, whatever tabletop you want to use, there is a way that you can run that and have it so that it does become a threat from the BBEG, because maybe the more that you use your illicit powers after you realize that there's something up here, maybe you start to gain some odd cravings. Things that, normal food starts, it doesn't taste as good anymore.
Yeah, like one of my favorite settings in all of role playing is the Ravenloft setting. And in the Ravenloft setting, sometimes there are consequences, or sometimes you get tempted by something in the dark, and sometimes you get a boon like for giving into evil once in a while, or maybe a desperate situation happens and suddenly your luck changes. Okay, why did that happen? You don't know. And it introduces a new layer because suddenly the bad guy's helping you, or something is, and you don't know what that is. And again, that's a way to make the bad guy present, pardon me, as well as maybe suddenly something shiny and new shows up on your doorstep, and all it just simply says is from a friend, and it's never specified. So do you take this or do you not? Right? Like, because that's the thing too. Like, you want your bad guys, like, because we've kind of talked about them, but who are these people? We have to give them person. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My cat Beaker is playing with a pinwheel, and it's the most adorable thing ever. He is a little orange ball of chaos, and he's discovered that the pinwheel spins. Anyway, sorry. Sidetrack. Squirrel.
He is the second cutest floof.
Yeah,
Trouble.
he is.
My cat is the cutest.
I love him. He's so orange. But yeah, like when you look at your bad guys, you have to give them personality, and it can't be, shaking fist I am evil, because that's not interesting from like a narrative standpoint. Like, sure, I guess maybe on some level, like, okay, that's cool. It's the Joker I'm fighting. Okay, neat. But you look at a character from D&D, once again, I'm going to go back to Ravenloft. Count Strahd von Zarovich, vampire lord, ruler of Barovia, master of Castle Ravenloft. He's a vampire. Clearly, the serotonin challenged.
Yeah.
But why? He was cursed because he fell in love. He had a woman who didn't return his affections, and forever the dark powers of Ravenloft had determined you will come within arm's reach, and just when you think true happiness is within your grasp, we're going to take it away from you. And Strahd, like the born under a hot topic moon person that he is going to take it out on you. And that gives him a motivation because, like I said, not every bad guy is Cobra Commander, where they're really going to turn the world's money into Cobra bucks, or Megatron because Energon, right? Your bad guys have to be more than that's Rita Repulsa, and that's stupid.
I 100% agree. Like your bad guys do need to be more than just like a comic book villain. That's good in my opinion for something like a mid boss. Like, your lieutenants, they can be the mook cartoon boss. But
Starscream, go fight Starscream.
Yeah. Pardon me.
Even Shredder to a certain extent.
Yeah. But for your big bad, you want them to have some gravitas. Like, you want that to be the thing that capstones your campaign. And after the break here, I think we can do a little bit more talking about how you can do that in the moment and maybe during the encounters with said big bad.
Exactly. Whether these guys are going to be, like I said, Megatron and his fusion cannon, Cobra. La, 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 la. Can't believe I just did that. More insanity coming up next, right here on 93.3. This is CFRU. This is the Spellbook, and we got big bad guys, big dice, but maybe with some gravitas. We will be back right here on the best tabletop role-playing show on this station. And as far as I know, well, actually, we're not the only one. Whatever. We'll be back right after this.
We are Paisley Road Public School with our grade 4 class.
And you're listening to CFRU.
Welcome back to the Spellbook, right here on 93.3 CFRU Guelph Community Radio, as we talk about the BBEG. So one of the things that you want to do with your big bad, with your big bad, eventually they are going to have to make an now I myself, I do that multiple times during Act 3, or at least I like to, depending on group. Um, the first time, what I like doing is essentially setting up the fight at, you know, boss level 1. You're not gonna fight a multi-phase boss fight at this point. You're probably not even gonna fight them in their lair. Maybe using the dragon example that we've used thus far, maybe you come upon them as I'm thinking this is, like I said, like a longer term campaign. So like maybe you're level 15 by this point, and you have all your fancy bells and whistles and spells and whatnot, and you come across this strange looking dragon. I'm picturing some sort of like hybrid blue-red dragon that can use both fire and lightning, but that's just me being weird.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that actually, yeah, let's run with that. It's some non-standard dragon that looks like a weird fusion between a blue dragon and a red dragon. It's like has purple scales, it's using both fire and lightning. It has some of the worst traits from each. Greedy and arrogant. But your party comes across it as it's terrorizing a small town or even a small city, and that first fight, you kind of want to set expectations. You want to show, okay, what can this thing do? But you don't want it to be a fight to the death. As we've spoken about before on the show, you want to play this monster smart. Fight till about half hit. Fly, use terrain. Like, don't aim to wipe out the party, but showcase what this thing can do.
There's a strategy. Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And then, yeah, like I said, once it gets to about half hit points, have it fly off to its lair, which is then going to give the party a little bit of information on which direction to go to find said lair, which leads through quest line for Act 3. And like I said, it acts as a way to show rather than
one of the ideas that I can't remember what dungeon tuber I heard this from. I want to say it was either the dungeon dudes, might have been Pointy Hat, but I thought this was really clever. Have your enemy use, if not a body double, there's this idea. There's a spell called Simulacrum, which basically allows you to create a clone of yourself that is functionally you, but much weaker. And this may be an interesting way to introduce your bad guy face to face, and you as the players can gather information about this bad guy without it being too bad. What do I mean by that? Well, a simulacrum, for example, has access to all the same spells and abilities, but it can't refresh its spell slots. So, for example, you're fighting, I don't know, I can't think of a good name, Jim the Wizard. Jim the Wizard starts counterspelling your fireballs. Okay, crap. What are we gonna do? I don't know. Magic missile. Okay, that hits. Cool. Oh, I've got a level 3 spell. What am I gonna do? I don't know. Try fireball again. It got through. What do you mean it got through? He's got counterspell. Because he's a simulacrum, he can't restore those spell slots. So now you've got information. Wait, he can only cast that twice. Okay, that's information we can use. And let's say you get rid of Jim the wizard. Somehow you get lucky, he gets whatever. Jim the wizard's been gathering information on you too.
Mm-hmm.
So now when they finally encounter the real flesh and blood Jim the wizard, they know he's got counterspell, but they have a rough idea on how many spell slots he's got. And that's providing he didn't hold back. But at least this way, when you pull out stuff like counterspell, silvery barbs, or dispel magic, or any of these spells that can disrupt you as a player, you know that's coming.
Yeah.
And that's good information. And again, it makes your bad guy more threatening because, okay, we can throw all this stuff at him. He's got some solutions. What are we going to do? Right? And that's interesting, I think. I don't know, Damien, because we've only got a couple of minutes left here in the show, probably about, probably 5 or 6. How do you make these villains interesting without turning into Shakespearean soliloquy delivering monologues as they sit there? Okay, Darth Vader, can we wrap this up? I'd like to kick your ass now. Like, what do you do, right? Like, how do you turn these bad guys into something that's memorable other than, I will destroy you because you did something terrible? Like, how do you make these guys memorable?
Well, outside of the things that we've already mentioned, by having them be a ever-present, if not constant, presence or threat to the party, I think a lot of it comes down to the final boss fight. And you, as you say, like, you don't want to soliloquy for 10 minutes. You want your players to get into the fight because that's why they're there. That's the culmination of their effort. But use your surroundings. Don't let the final boss fight with your BBEG happen outside of their lane. And use that. Don't necessarily use it to punish your players, but use it to make the fight interesting. Using this dragon, for instance. Maybe it's in a cave out in the desert, and once you get in and past all the kobold guards and the lieutenants, and you've taken your last short rest, and you're getting ready to fight this dragon. Maybe its like main cave for its lair has a bunch of ledges that it fights from, and you have to figure out a way to deal with that. Maybe it has some sort of legendary action or lair action that allows it to cause gusts of wind to envelop the cave, which can disrupt concentration and things like that.
Yeah, like one trick I've done specifically, and I'm really happy you use the blue dragon example. This means I can never do this to you. But my players were fighting the final boss of the adventure in a cave. He was a blue dragon, but what he had done is he had turned the entire floor to glass because he superheated the sand in this cave. But what he did was use his wings to cover the glass with fresh sand. So when the players were walking across the floor, they're like, all right, cool, we're going to get all set up and we're going to kick your butt. Nope, I'm going to shoot the floor and shatter it below you. So now your players have to think about the terrain because, again, not every fight's going to be a Metal Gear Solid boss fight where you're in this small arena. It's not going to be Skyrim where you're swinging a sword around like Conan. It's not even going to be the fight against Atom Smasher in Cyberpunk where you're just going to unload your like smart pistol into his head 50,000 times. Make your environments interesting. Put interesting terrain, interesting weather, effects. Like, to use Damien's example, in this cave, okay, maybe there are a couple of statues in this room that are projecting an anti-magic field. So, okay, that sucks for a spellcaster, like, one of you guys. But that also works against the dragon too, because maybe he forgets, like, I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to cast polymorph. Hey, wait a second. Why isn't this working? Oh, and then Conan can come in swinging, because suddenly the dragon can't be cast in magic anymore. Sure, he's still got his breath weapon, but now you've taken a tool out of his toolkit, and you're using the big bad evil person's arrogance against them. Right?
Yeah. Like, and that's the thing is, not only can you as the GM use the terrain, let your players use the terrain well. If, say, in this cave suggestion scenario, one of the players at this high level has something like earthquake or something similar,
I knew that was coming.
let them cast it.
Yeah.
However, now that cave is starting to possibly come down. It's, don't have it crush the party, because that would be a really big feels bad moment. But now that's a hazard that has been added to the boss fight and turned it kind of into an escape.
Yeah, because the dragon can't just fly out without, rocks hitting his wings, so he can't get flight. You as the party are like, I don't know, man. Do we hang out here and finish this guy, or should we be getting, the hell out of here? That changes the dynamic. And, ultimately at the end of the day, you want those victories to feel earned. So if your players come up with something totally clever, let it happen, but don't let them abuse you. For example, there is a combo in D&D, for example, where if you put another bag of holding in another bag of holding, you create a black hole.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? You can do that once. And that's fine. That's clever. That's funny. That's ha-ha. But don't let that happen twice. Or if they try to pull the same trick twice, that's when you start pulling out the punishment. Because again, you don't want to rob people of a memorable moment that they'll talk about for days afterwards. That's not fun either. And maybe you want to give your bad guy a really cool speech other than, "Arg, I've been defeated." Maybe again, Strahd, for example, you cast Earthquake in Castle Ravenloft, and maybe the sun shines in. He didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys have had a lot of fun with us this afternoon talking here on the Spellbook. What are we going to be talking about next week? I don't know. But you're going to like it, because if you don't, I'll find you. So with all that being said, for the Spellbook, we have been...
I am Damien, also known as Magical Hat.
I have been Mike the Birdman. We will see you guys next week right here on Guelph Community Radio. This has been 93.3 CFRU. And like I said, I'll find you. That's not a threat. That's a promise. We'll catch you guys next week right here on the Spellbook.
It's not enough. We have a gallery of villains to look out for, but now we could be infiltrated by a shape changer. I can't even tell if any of you are acting strange because you've been replaced or because this group is full of weirdos.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Spellbook. If you happen to have any comments or suggestions, please send us an email at thespellbookshow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're hungry for more, you can find Mike at thisweekingeek.net, covering a variety of nerdy topics, and Damien on YouTube at Magical Hack Makes for more TTRPG conversation.
That's it, man. Game over, man.